Hello everyone, and welcome back to English Cubby. I'm so excited to share today's story with you. After our adventure in the Alaskan wilderness with Buck, we're going to Victorian London for a completely different kind of story, a psychological thriller that will make you think about human nature. Today, we're exploring The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, published in 1886. This is one of the most famous stories in English literature, and the phrase Jekyll and Hyde is still used today to describe someone with two very different personalities. This story asks a powerful question. What if the good and evil sides of human nature could be separated? What would happen? Before we begin the story, I want to clarify something important. This is not the original text from Robert Louis Stevenson's book. This is a summary and retelling in my own words, designed specifically for English learners. The original novella uses complex Victorian English from 1886. What I'm sharing today is the complete story, all the major plot points, characters, and revelations, but told in clearer, more accessible modern English so you can understand and enjoy this mystery while learning. If you love this story, I encourage you to read the original to experience Stevenson's masterful Victorian writing style. Now, let me share some key vocabulary you'll hear throughout this story. Respectable, proper, well-behaved, socially acceptable. Reputation, what other people think about you, your public image. Transformation, a complete change in appearance or character. Duality, having two opposite sides or natures. Conscience, the inner voice that tells you right from wrong. Now, let's enter the foggy streets of Victorian London and discover this dark mystery. Part 1. The Mysterious Door. Our story begins with Mr. Utterson, a respected lawyer in London. He's a quiet, serious man who values order and respectability. Every Sunday he takes a walk with his distant cousin, Mr. Richard Enfield. During one of these walks, they pass a strange building. It's a windowless door in a dark alley, mysterious and unwelcoming. Enfield tells Utterson a disturbing story about this door. A few months earlier, Enfield was walking home late at night when he witnessed something shocking. He saw a small, ugly man trampling over a young girl who was running around the corner. The man didn't stop to help her. He simply walked over her body as if she were nothing. Vocabulary note. Trampling means stepping on something heavily and crushing it. Enfield and others who heard the girl's screams caught the man and were furious. The man seemed completely without feeling or remorse. To avoid scandal, the man agreed to pay the girl's family £100, a large sum of money. Here's the strange part. The man went to that mysterious door, entered, and came back with a check. But the check wasn't signed by him. It was signed by a respected gentleman named Dr. Henry Jekyll, a well-known doctor and scientist. This was very odd. Why would a respectable doctor like Jekyll give his check to such an unpleasant man? Who was this man? Utterson asks. His name, Enfield says, was Mr. Hyde. When Utterson hears this name, his face becomes very serious. He knows something that Enfield doesn't, something that worries him deeply. Part 2. Dr. Jekyll's Will. Mr. Utterson returns home, troubled by what he's heard. He goes to his safe and takes out an important document, the will of his friend and client, Dr. Henry Jekyll. The will contains very strange instructions. It says that if Dr. Jekyll dies or disappears for more than 3 months, everything he owns, his house, his money, everything, should go to My friend and benefactor, Edward Hyde. Vocabulary note. A benefactor is someone who helps or supports you, usually with money. This will has always bothered Utterson. Why would the respected Dr. Jekyll leave everything to this Mr. Hyde? And now, after hearing Enfield's story, Utterson is even more concerned. Utterson decides to investigate. He visits Dr. Lanyon, another doctor who is an old friend of Jekyll's. Utterson asks Lanyon about Hyde. Hyde? Lanyon says. I've never heard of him. Jekyll and I don't see each other much anymore. About 10 years ago, he became too interested in unscientific theories, wild ideas that no respectable scientist would accept. We had a disagreement, and we haven't been close since. This makes Utterson even more worried. What is Jekyll involved in? Who is this Hyde, and why does Jekyll support him? Utterson decides he must see Hyde for himself. Part 3. Meeting Mr. Hyde. For several weeks, Utterson waits near that mysterious door, hoping to see Hyde. Finally, one night, his patience is rewarded. A small man approaches the door with a key. Mr. Hyde, I think, Utterson calls out. Hyde stops. Even in the darkness, Utterson can see that there's something deeply wrong with this man. He's not just ugly. There's something evil about him, something that makes Utterson's skin crawl. Hyde is deformed, though Utterson can't quite explain how. It's as if evil itself has twisted his body. Important phrase. Hyde gives an impression of deformity without any nameable malformation. You feel something is wrong with him, but you can't say exactly what. How did you know my name? Hyde asks suspiciously. His voice is harsh and unpleasant. We have common friends, Utterson says. Dr. Jekyll, for instance. At the mention of Jekyll's name, Hyde's face twists with anger. Jekyll didn't tell you about me, he snarls. Then, suddenly afraid, he asks, You haven't seen my face clearly, have you? Before Utterson can answer, Hyde unlocks the door and disappears inside. Utterson is shaken. He walks around to the front of the building and realizes something shocking. The mysterious door is actually a back entrance to Dr. Jekyll's house. Hyde has access to Jekyll's home. Utterson's worry grows. Is Jekyll being blackmailed? Does Hyde have some terrible secret about Jekyll that forces the doctor to support him? If he is Mr. Hyde, Utterson thinks, then I shall be Mr. Seek. He's determined to discover the truth and protect his friend. Vocabulary note. This is a play on words. Hide and seek is a children's game. Utterson is saying he will search for the truth that Hyde is hiding. Part 4. The Carew Murder. Nearly a year passes. Then something terrible happens that shocks all of London. A maid is looking out her window late one night. She sees an elderly gentleman walking along the street, Sir Danvers Carew, a respected member of Parliament. He stops to ask directions from a small man. The maid recognizes the small man. It's Mr. Hyde. What happens next is horrifying. Without any reason or warning, Hyde suddenly attacks Sir Danvers Carew with a heavy walking stick. He beats the old man savagely, again and again, with insane fury. The violence is so extreme that the walking stick breaks. Sir Danvers Carew dies from the beating. Vocabulary note. Insane fury means wild, uncontrolled anger, like madness. The maid faints from shock. When the police arrive the next morning, they find half of the broken walking stick beside the body. They also find a letter addressed to Mr. Utterson in the dead man's pocket. The police come to Utterson and show him the broken walking stick. Utterson's heart sinks. He recognizes it. Years ago, he gave that walking stick as a gift to Dr. Jekyll. "I can take you to the murderer's house," Utterson tells the police. They go to Hyde's address in Soho, a poor and rough part of London. The landlady lets them in. Hyde's rooms are elegantly furnished but in complete chaos. Drawers are pulled open, papers are scattered everywhere, and clothes are thrown about. It looks like someone left in a desperate hurry. Behind the door, the police find the other half of the walking stick, proof that Hyde is the murderer. But Hyde himself has vanished. All of London is searching for Edward Hyde, but he seems to have disappeared completely. Part 5. Jekyll's behavior. Utterson goes immediately to Dr. Jekyll's house. He finds Jekyll in his laboratory, looking pale and sick. "You haven't been hiding Hyde, have you?" Utterson asks. No, Jekyll says quickly. "I swear I will never see Hyde again. I am done with him forever. He doesn't need my help. He's gone. Completely gone." Jekyll seems genuinely distressed. He shows Utterson a letter, supposedly from Hyde. The letter says that Hyde is sorry for repaying Jekyll's generosity with such terrible crimes, and that Jekyll shouldn't worry. Hyde has a safe escape plan. Utterson is relieved. But as he's leaving, he asks Jekyll's butler, "Did a messenger deliver any letters today?" "No, sir," the butler replies. "Only the usual mail." This is strange. How did Jekyll get Hyde's letter if no messenger came? Utterson shows the letter to his head clerk, who notices something remarkable. The handwriting in Hyde's letter is very similar to Jekyll's handwriting, just slanted differently. A terrible suspicion begins to form in Utterson's mind, but it's too horrible to believe. Could Jekyll have forged the letter himself? But why would he protect a murderer? Part 6. Dr. Lanyon's death. For a few months, things seem to return to normal. Hyde has disappeared completely. Dr. Jekyll becomes social again, hosting dinner parties and seeing his friends. He seems like his old self, cheerful and friendly. Then, suddenly, Jekyll refuses to see anyone. He locks himself in his laboratory and won't come out. He won't even see Utterson, his closest friend. Utterson visits Dr. Lanyon, hoping to understand what's happening with Jekyll. But he finds Lanyon terribly changed. The doctor looks like a dying man. His face is pale, his hands shake, and he has a look of deep horror in his eyes. "I've had a shock," Lanyon says in a trembling voice, "a shock from which I will never recover. I have only a few weeks to live." "What happened?" Utterson asks. "Does it have to do with Jekyll?" At the mention of Jekyll's name, Lanyon's face fills with terror. "I never want to hear that name again," he cries. "As far as I'm concerned, Jekyll is already dead." Vocabulary note. When someone says another person is dead to them, it means they want nothing to do with that person anymore. They're cutting all connection. Utterson is shocked. What could have happened between these two old friends? A few weeks later, Dr. Lanyon dies. After his death, Utterson receives a letter from Lanyon with strange instructions. "Do not open this until after the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll." Inside that envelope is another sealed envelope with the same instructions. Whatever Lanyon knew, he didn't want Utterson to discover it yet. Utterson tries once more to visit Jekyll. The butler lets him into the house, but Jekyll refuses to see him. Through the laboratory door, Jekyll's voice sounds strange, broken and desperate. "Go away, Utterson," Jekyll calls. "I must be alone. I can never see anyone again." Part 7. The night at the window. Sometime later, Utterson and Enfield are taking their usual Sunday walk. They pass by Dr. Jekyll's house and see Jekyll sitting at an upstairs window. He looks terrible, pale, sick, and haunted. "Jekyll," Utterson calls up. "You should get some fresh air. Come for a walk with us." Jekyll tries to smile. "I would like to very much, but I cannot. I dare not. I must stay here." "Well then," Utterson says kindly, "we'll stay and talk to you from here." "You're very good," Jekyll says, and for a moment he seems happier. But then, suddenly, an expression of absolute terror and despair crosses Jekyll's face, a look so horrible that both Utterson and Enfield feel their blood run cold. Jekyll quickly closes the window and disappears from view. Utterson and Enfield look at each other in shock. Without speaking, they walk away quickly, both deeply disturbed by what they just saw on their friend's face. Important moment. Something terrible is happening to Jekyll, and it's getting worse. Part 8. The Last Night. A few days later, Jekyll's butler, Poole, comes to Utterson's house in a state of panic. "Mr. Utterson, sir, something is terribly wrong. I think there's been foul play. I think the master has been murdered." They rush to Jekyll's house. Poole explains that Jekyll has been locked in his laboratory for over a week. He demands chemicals from Poole but rejects every delivery, saying they're not pure enough. Poole has heard strange sounds, crying, footsteps pacing back and forth, and a voice that doesn't quite sound like Jekyll's. "I've been in this house for 20 years, Poole says, trembling. "I know my master's voice." The person in that laboratory, that's not Dr. Jekyll. They go to the laboratory door. Utterson calls out, "Jekyll!" "It's Utterson. I demand to see you." A voice from inside replies, "For God's sake, Utterson, have mercy. Go away." Utterson and Poole look at each other. That voice is wrong. It's Hyde's voice. They break down the door with an axe. Inside, they find a horrifying scene. The laboratory is in chaos, and there, in the middle of the room, wearing clothes far too large for him, is the body of Edward Hyde. He's still twitching. He's just poisoned himself moments before they broke in. But where is Jekyll? They search the entire laboratory and the attached rooms. Dr. Jekyll is nowhere to be found. It's as if he's vanished into thin air. On the desk, they find 3 documents. 1. A new will, leaving everything to Utterson, not to Hyde. 2. A note in Jekyll's handwriting, addressed to Utterson. 3. A thick, sealed packet. Vocabulary note: foul play means crime or murder. Wrongdoing that harms someone. Part 9. Dr. Lanyon's narrative. Utterson takes the documents home. First, he opens Dr. Lanyon's sealed letter, the one he received when Lanyon died. Lanyon's letter tells an incredible story. One night, Lanyon received an urgent letter from Jekyll, begging for help. Jekyll asked Lanyon to go to Jekyll's laboratory, break in if necessary, and retrieve certain chemicals and powders. Then Jekyll asked Lanyon to bring these items to his house and give them to a person who would come at midnight. Lanyon thought Jekyll might be insane, but because of their old friendship, he did as asked. He broke into Jekyll's laboratory and took the chemicals. At midnight, a small, ugly man arrived, Mr. Hyde. Hyde was desperate, shaking with anticipation. He practically snatched the chemicals from Lanyon's hands. "Will you watch what happens next?" Hyde asked with a terrible smile. "Will you be wise? If you watch, you will see something that no man has ever seen before. Your scientific beliefs will be shattered." Lanyon, curious despite himself, agreed to watch. Hyde mixed the chemicals. The mixture bubbled and changed colors, white to purple to green. Then Hyde drank it. What happened next was so horrible that Lanyon's hand trembles as he writes about it. Hyde's body began to change. He swelled, his features melted and reformed, his whole body transformed. And standing where Hyde had been was Dr. Henry Jekyll. The terrible truth: Jekyll and Hyde were the same person. Lanyon writes, "What he told me in the next hour, I cannot bring myself to put on paper. I saw what I saw, I heard what I heard, and my soul is sick. I will die soon, and I can only be thankful that I will not have to live long with this knowledge." Part 10. Henry Jekyll's full statement. Utterson, his hands shaking, opens Jekyll's final confession. It explains everything. Dr. Jekyll had always been fascinated by the dual nature of humanity, the idea that every person has both good and evil within them. He was a respectable man, but he had desires and impulses that society would condemn. He lived a double life, hiding his less respectable pleasures behind his good reputation. Jekyll became obsessed with a question. What if he could separate these two sides? What if the good Jekyll and the evil desires could be split into two separate beings? He spent years researching. Finally, he created a chemical formula, a potion that he believed could transform him. One night, knowing the risk, he drank it. The transformation was agonizing. His body felt like it was being torn apart. But when it ended, he felt younger, lighter, and completely free. He looked in the mirror and saw a smaller, younger man, Edward Hyde. This was the physical form of all his evil impulses, freed from conscience. As Hyde, Jekyll could do whatever he wanted without damaging his own reputation. No one would connect the respectable Dr. Jekyll with the evil Mr. Hyde. He rented rooms for Hyde in a rough part of London. He even made a will leaving everything to Hyde, just in case something went wrong, and he got stuck in Hyde's form. At first, Jekyll was careful. He would transform into Hyde, indulge in pleasures he was ashamed of, and then transform back into Jekyll. It was perfect, or so he thought. But Hyde began to grow stronger. The transformations became easier. Then, one morning, Jekyll woke up naturally as Hyde. He had transformed in his sleep without taking the potion. This terrified him. Hyde was taking over. Jekyll tried to stop. For 2 months, he refused to transform, but the temptation grew too strong. One night, he took the potion again and became Hyde. That night, Hyde trampled the little girl. And later, in a fit of rage, Hyde murdered Sir Danvers Carew. After the murder, Jekyll was horrified by what Hyde had done. He swore never to transform again. But now the changes were happening more frequently without the potion. He would be sitting in a park as Jekyll and suddenly feel the transformation beginning. He needed larger and larger doses of the potion to turn back into Jekyll. Worse still, Hyde was growing more powerful and more evil. At first, Hyde had been merely mischievous. Now he was cruel, violent, and murderous. Then came the final disaster. Jekyll ran out of the original chemical he needed for the potion. He sent Poole to buy more, but something was different about the new batches. Perhaps an impurity in the original that he couldn't identify. The new potion didn't work. Jekyll was trapped, spending more and more time as Hyde. He locked himself in his laboratory, desperately trying different chemical combinations, but nothing worked. Jekyll's final words: "I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end." Here I lay down the pen and proceed to seal up this confession. I will soon have to become Hyde permanently, and when they break down the door, it will be Hyde they find. Will Hyde die upon the scaffold? Or will he find courage to release himself at the last moment? Only God knows. This is truly the end. Vocabulary note: die upon the scaffold means to be executed by hanging. A scaffold is a wooden platform used for public executions in Victorian times. Jekyll is asking, will the police catch Hyde and hang him for murder, or will Hyde kill himself first to avoid that fate? Part 11. The meaning of the story. And that's where the story ends, with Hyde dead by his own hand and Jekyll gone forever. The themes of this story. 1. The dual nature of humanity. We all have both good and bad within us. Jekyll tried to separate them, but they cannot truly be divided. 2. The danger of suppression. Jekyll spent his life hiding his desires, trying to be perfectly respectable. When he finally let Hyde free, Hyde became a monster because he had been repressed for so long. 3. The consequences of playing God. Jekyll tried to use science to change human nature itself. His experiment destroyed him. 4. Reputation versus reality. Victorian society was obsessed with appearing respectable, even if it meant living a double life. Jekyll's tragedy came from caring too much about his reputation. 5. The loss of control. At first, Jekyll controlled the transformations, but Hyde grew stronger until Jekyll lost all control. Evil, once released, is hard to contain. The strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde remains relevant today because it explores something universal: the conflict between who we are and who we present ourselves to be, between our desires and our conscience. Jekyll's mistake wasn't having both good and bad within him. We all do. His mistake was thinking he could split himself in two, that he could indulge his worst impulses without consequences, and that he could keep Hyde under control. The story reminds us that we must accept all parts of ourselves, the good and the bad, and integrate them, not try to separate them. Fun fact: this story was so popular that Jekyll and Hyde became a common phrase in English. When we say someone has a Jekyll and Hyde personality, we mean they have two very different sides, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel. Thank you for watching English Cubby. I hope you enjoyed this dark psychological thriller and learn some new English vocabulary along the way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more classic stories. What did you think? Do you believe people have both good and evil within them? Could something like Jekyll's experiment ever really happen? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Next time, we'll explore another amazing classic story. Keep learning, keep reading, and keep growing. See you in the next adventure.